What's up, Chris? Welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for everyone attending today. How is everybody doing?
Doing good.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Sergio, you've prepped everyone what we're going to be talking about today. I actually have a special presentation for us today as well.
Amazing. I just jumped on myself, Chris, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with just a quick overview of the agenda and start us off with some exciting news around the upcoming drop that we're going to have next weekend. And if I drop a menu in somewhere here, gotta find the chat. Which chat am I dropping this in, Christian? Is this the Grow Hour Live, or should I put it in the announcements? Which channel? Perfect. Yeah, nope.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Perfect. Volume 3. So Gastropop Volume 3, guys, dropping next weekend. Super excited about this. Let me type this out next weekend. Boom. All right. So if you go to the announcements channel, you're going to see Gastropop Volume 3. We got 2 crosses coming out. First being the Total Eclipse, which is the Kingslayer number 8 by the Gastropop number 5. Chris, I'd love to tap into you and talk a little bit about the Kingslayer, a little bit, and why this ended up in the pollination. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to start here really quick. Hey, guys.
There we go. Gotcha.
Yeah, so very excited and proud of both of these seed drops that we got going on here. And yeah, let's talk about have we talked about the names and everything too, Sergio? We can drop that now.
Yep, I just posted in the announcements.
Awesome. Okay, so we got the Total Eclipse, which is Kingslayer by Gastropop. We started hunting these Kingslayer seeds from Fig Tree. Fig Tree is a breeder in Santa Cruz, California, and he's just kind of like a homestead guy. I mean, he's doing mostly outdoor gear, but he's kept some pretty legendary cuts, like, well, not cuts, but lines going by just making either doing filial generations and like outcrossing them a little bit, but also just doing S1s or just F1, F2 generations but like self-pollinating. And one of those most important cuts that he's worked with is the Black Rose cut. Black Rose is a cross that was originally made in England by Heath Robinson, and it's kind of a legendary strain. So if you guys look this up, it's a really interesting one. But one of the things I sought out in this cross specifically for is that I did a lot of I'm always doing research on genetics, and to me this is intensely purple expression that did not come from any of the Cookies family gear. And if you do trace back to most purple gear these days, it came from something gelato related. And that's something that's incredibly, obviously all the gelato stuff is amazing, but it's a little bit of like a narrowed, like a bottleneck in the genetics. So what I was trying to work on is to gather something from something totally new and different. And that's where we started to work with the Kingslayer. Kingslayer is Black Rose with an S. Black Rose by Royal Kush, and I believe the Black Rose. Maybe you can cut. I believe the Black Rose is an F11, and the Royal Kush is an F13 cross. So like these have been kept a long time by Fig Tree, and thank you Fig Tree, and shout out to Fig Tree here. Follow him on Instagram at Fig Tree FYGTREE. He has some drops here and there, and he has some really interesting stuff. Yes, they're definitely old school genetics. So this is a different. These are probably seeds that were like got through the mail in like early 2000s or something like that from the Dutch guys. But yeah. So we hunted a cut of Kingslayer, Royal Kush by Black Rose. We got a really interesting cross of extremely purple expression that look, the purple looks a little different than a lot of the stuff we have on the market these days. With a really interesting kind of dark fruit nose that is not a gelato nose at all, with quite a bit of the Royal Kush like incense, cream, and just kind of like gas notes. So very exciting to make that Kingslayer cut. From that, we then cross that to our beloved Gastropop, and we have a really interesting cross here, guys. So especially just the color and the way these plants manifest into flower, we saw some of the most beautiful finished flowers we'd ever seen. Sergio, what I mean, can you describe what some of those jars looked like? And the average pheno is extremely amazing here, but I think that 13 in the jar was just like stunning.
It really was. I mean, the trichome density, the bud structure, everything about like most of the phenos that we had out of here were incredible. So you're definitely getting that perfume, the fuel, the berries, everything kind of mixed in together, but you're getting layers of complexity. And so when we were going through the number 6 and the number 11, those were definite standouts. And kind of what Chris was talking about. You're really getting a lot of the expression from that Kingslayer mixed perfectly with the Gastropop, which we love. You know, it's got that beautiful, bright, astringent fruit fuel and the blueberry banana terp, like kind of all mixing in. It's super special crosses. Chris, what really surprised me was like just the overall agronomic studies of the progeny from this cross, because they were getting early finishing. We saw some really strong resistance.
Very fast finishing.
Yeah. So what would you say is a common expectation? Is it around that 8 to 9 week time frame? Is there a chance for earlier finishing?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that a lot of these are like 8-week strains. They tend to finish rather fast, but you're going to have some between 8 days, and we're saying take it to 60 or 62 days, like 8.5 weeks. But I think you can definitely get away with like 55 days on these. And that might be the right time to cut them, honestly. So it's very interesting. They're definitely fast flowering. I'm gonna on the grow hour questions, I'm gonna put a couple of the photos from these crosses. We have 4 phenotypes that I'm gonna share with you guys today. I'm gonna put in the questions here. So just drop those in there. Those are all Kingslayers. Sorry. Total Eclipses. And so I want to talk about the name Total Eclipse for a sec, because it's kind of a nerd out moment. We love like riffing, making, we love making names that refer to both parents. And killing a king, we were thinking of like bad omens for death. And it used to be that a total eclipse was an omen for death. So we were essentially listing a death omen without it being too metal or dark. Just as some cool little, reference to the Kingslayer name. So, can you guys see those? Or those are in the chat, correct? No? Hang on a second.
Did you put them in the grower hour chat, or which one?
Yeah, it's like processing now. So it's in the grow hour questions chat. There you go. And then we can talk about the other cross really quick, and then I want to get to the presentation of the questions really quick. So the other cross we have is Total Eclipse. Check it out. This is getting dropped this Memorial Day weekend with the banks, and you can find all your links here if you're interested. All your links on the verified vendors of who's going to run it. Sergio, can you can make it easier for people to find where to go here?
Yep, exactly. So what I'm also going to be doing is updating the Compound Genetics website with the specific Gastropop Volume 3 drop list, kind of like we did with the Volume 2, where we're going to have a whole, the flow page link where it has all the specific banks that are going to be participating in this drop with us. And yeah, we'll have more information on that coming up on the website shortly here.
Awesome. I'm going to put some pictures of this. So the next one we have is, it doesn't have quite the same story as Total Eclipse. Is a really interesting one, but this is just 2 favorites hitting our favorite Mellowz 8 phenotype to Gastropop number 5. And this is just 2 winners stacked on top of each other. Both of these are from the Grape Gas line, so you can expect plenty of kind of grapey terps from this. However, you also get a lot of the bubblegum, which has been kind of we've like centered in around Spritz are really having a bubblegum terp, and we love that because it's kind of like you don't see that often these days, that bubblegum. But we're really excited about the terps that come from this. We the 11 pheno we have, which is one of the ones I'll show you here, is. Can you describe the terp of that, Sergio? There's like a really nice, a little bit of astringency and like sourness to it, but also a ton of that like dark fruit and a little bit of the kerosene gas, I'd say. It's really lovely. You can see this is a beast. It's a beast of a flower. Really beautiful.
Yeah, Chris, you nailed it. That's exactly what I would describe it as. You get that astringency on some of the phenos, but yeah, the mesh of the berries and fuel. It's a really nice cross, and just honestly, like when you get the aroma, you get that sweetness, but then when you actually break it down and smoke it, the exhale has a lot of gas coming through on there too. So it's definitely one of those that's going to have layers of complexity, but definitely a sweeter profile. And if you enjoy the Mellowz, this is one that you definitely want to check out. We all love the Mellowz. It's one of my personal favorites. Even if I'm not sure if you've seen any of the other Mellowz phenos that we have, but that is an opportunity to really just find a bit more of a nuanced version of that particular cultivar. Really nice.
These two batches of photos down here are the number 6 pheno we have and the number 11 pheno we have. And just the trichome density is insane. It's hard to photograph these without dense they are. Cool. Well, yeah, and that one is named Double Up. Mellowz by Gastro. Check it out. Really, really like these seeds. I'm very proud to release these seeds, so check them out. I'm going to do a short presentation, and then I'm going to get into the questions really quick. And the what I'm going to be talking about today is pH. It's a really exciting topic that everyone's been begging to hear more about. No, I'm kidding. We've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of growers work with pH. It's such a under kind of appreciated, important, very critically important thing to understand fully. So I'm going to present my screen. So you guys can see that in the screen, okay?
Perfect. That's good. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I've talked about this a lot when I train people at our grow. I go through this specific thing, and I'm going to be talking through this in like next couple. It might not be every single one, but the next couple of these, I want to go back to these slides and do a different aspect of these major pillars. I think I need better words for this because I call these the big 5 on the left, but then the other 4 aren't very exciting. I think I need a better name for that. The other 4. But why do I call this the big 5? The key here is that so many people pay attention to so many different things and often get kind of like zoomed too far into one specific issue that they're working through. And really the issue is just a symptom of one of the larger problems in the grow not being addressed fully. So whenever I'm like consulting or working with a grower or training people, I don't want to hear anything about these other 4 or any other issue in the grow unless these 5 on the left are 100% taken care of and verified to have been at the proper setting, right? So temperature, humidity, light intensity, water content, electroconductivity. You will have healthy plants with those 5 in balance, right? And you can see this little thing here is that temperature, humidity, and air movement all contribute to VPD, which is kind of a catch-all to address all 3 of those. Obviously, as long as you're in temperature, especially temperature range of cannabis growth, which is like 72 Fahrenheit to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. So we can talk about all these different things. And if you are a grower if you ever have a problem, go, oh my God, what's happening? Go back and take manual measurements. I'm not talking your automated thing or anything. Take manual measurements with a laser thermometer or a manual thermometer as well as a hygrometer. Redundant is always better. And your PPFD meter for your light intensity. Water content can be volumetric content calculated by weight and volume, and then dividing amongst volume, and electroconductivity with an EC meter with watt runoff. If these are all good, then go to the other 4 and go, oh, is there another problem here? And that's a really big piece of advice I'd give to just keep kind of saying, because it's really easy for us to kind of get spiral out in the grow. So today we're going to talk about pH specifically as one of the core things as a grower. So what is pH? A lot of people don't even understand what pH actually is, which is essentially just the number of protons in a solution. Why do I just say protons? Well, a hydrogen atom missing an electron because it's ionized in a solution is just a proton. That's the only thing left in it. So it's just measuring the number of protons in a solution. We need to have a constant temperature for the measurements to be proper. And of course, this is in a logarithmic scale, which is, a math term for powers of 10, but it's a negative log. So it's actually the lower the pH number, the more hydrogen ions or protons. The higher the pH number, the fewer hydrogen ions. And for each number, 1 to 2, you have the log scale says that there's 10 times as many. So a pH of 5 has 10 times more hydrogen ions in it than a pH of 6. It's kind of confusing, but we all know the pH scale. This was actually discovered, or not discovered, but like presented, that's principle of, by a Danish chemist named Søren Sørensen. No joke. And then the funny thing too is that no one actually knows what the P stands for, and he never explained it. And they said, like, so what did it stand for? And he was like, I'd rather not say, or something like that. They're like, what? So we put the P there as a relic of Søren Sørensen for God knows why. Okay, so to understand pH, it's really important that we understand the equilibrium of water in a solution. So anytime we have a glass of water, chemistry says that we always have these type of equilibriums that, yes, most of the water is in the form of H2O, but you also have free hydrogen ions floating around and OH ions floating around. And it's simply because of the chaos of the solution, or the energy of the solution, drives the reaction one way or another. And pH is simply how is it driven towards one side of the reaction more than the other side of the reaction. And that's kind of like illustrated here, like the hydrogen ions. Low pH would indicate that you're driving to the left of that reaction. High would be that you're driving to the right side of that reaction. So in water, you actually have this tetrahedral shape, this funny shape here, and you have these electrons coming off the oxygen molecule. And so it forms this shape, but it can also shed that hydrogen ion and just form like a linear shape where it has the hydrogen on one end and the oxygen on the other end. And that's also a somewhat stable, not that stable, but that's called a hydroxide molecule. Okay, so why does it matter for us? In nutrient solutions, which many cannabis growers are using, and even if you're using living soil and stuff, you still need to like pay attention to this. If you're using living soil, this scale is much less strict. It's widened, and that's one of the beauties of living soil complexes. But different pH levels make different ions in a solution more or less bioavailable. And that's simply because they don't like being on that side of the reaction. They don't like having too many, if there's too many hydrogen ions floating around, molybdenum can't really exist in a ion form. If there's a bunch of, or if there's very few hydrogen ions floating around, molybdenum becomes more and more stable. And that's what that indicates on that scale. This chart is actually totally BS because it's based on some really old data, but there's been very few people that have actually put this type of chart together. So it's kind of based on like very old data that's not that valid anymore. Moral of the story is that pH 5.5 to 6.5 is the optimal pH for all of these different plant micronutrients to exist in ion form available to plant at the same time. And so that's kind of the magic balance, which is slightly acidic. Okay, measuring pH. Most people probably use a pH meter. You can also use test strips, but that's kind of old school. And one thing I'll say is do not underestimate how important maintaining your pH meter is. And this sounds like such a nitpicky thing, but like I've personally seen facilities that are people freaking out about, what to do next, or going like, we're in big trouble, like what's going on? And it's because this thing was not calibrated right or was not maintained properly. So important thing is that probe, if you put the probe into nutrient solution and then just put it back in the thing, it's going to build up salts onto the surface of that, and then all the readings will be off. So you need to wash it in distilled water, and you need to be very disciplined about doing that. On it, obviously, just read the pH meter maintenance packet, but it's very tempting to crack one of those open, throw away all the papers, and just go to town. You should check this out. Of all the equipment you're working with, this is one that you really need to pay attention to maintaining. It often comes with, and you can buy storage solution for the pH meter, so also keep it in the storage solution, and then periodically calibrate it according to the manufacturer. Very important, because if you're making all your nutrient solutions and you're making it to 5-6 and the pH meter is actually just broken or not calibrated right, and all these solutions are 6-5, you're going to have major problems. Okay, adjusting pH. Using products such as pH down and pH up, use them sparingly. I've seen people squirt a little bit of up and then go, that's not right, and squirt a little bit of down, that's too far down. You should just do one drop at a time, mix, one drop, mix, because these chemicals aren't just nothings. They actually affect the balance of the nutrient solution, and a plant will grow differently in a solution that was calibrated up and down like crazy with pH up and pH down than it will on the original solution. And those solutions are not made to take a bunch of pH up or pH down. As you can see, phosphoric acid is the pH down active ingredient, so you're going to have more phosphorus, and potassium hydroxide and potassium carbonate are the pH up, which increases potassium. So you'll change the nutrient solution. Monitoring pH. This is one of the most pro tip things that you can do to level up your game as a grower, which is when you water your substrate, capturing some of the solution that comes through the pot or through the Grodan cube or through the clone tray, what have you, and measuring the pH, measuring the EC, and writing that down. This can save you so many headaches, and it's an instantaneous feedback for you to be eliminate that as the reason your plants are stressed out or something. You go, oh my God, my plants are so stressed out. What am I doing wrong? Water it with your nutrient solution, capture all the runoff into a container, and stick your pH and EC probe in there. And if that thing says 7.58 pH, right off the bat, I'm in trouble. And there are ways to flush through or remediate pH in a pot, and it almost has instant recovery of the plant. So it's really important that you can do that. The cause of pH issues at your grow can be substrate issues. Sometimes, guys, you can't trust these substrate manufacturers that much. These guys just build it and then send it to us, and we're the first line of defense if they manufacture a little differently or one of the ingredients was off. Sergio, maybe you can chime in. Have you ever heard of anyone getting a bad batch of substrate that caused issues?
Ooh. Oh my goodness, yes. PTSD thinking back around certain plugs that I'm not going to name names, but yeah, I mean this is a big challenge, right? Because the substrate had a binding agent that was not particularly calibrated when they moved manufacturing plants. So tens of thousands of clones were actually they suffered stem rot and died because there wasn't proper stratification in those plugs. So when Chris is talking about the pH, this is a big problem, right? The plugs didn't do what they were supposed to because there was a formulation change, which threw off the pH, which threw off a lot of different things. And led to a lot of unhappy plants. So
And-
very important
and
piece
you
there.
know, and these substrates don't just like come out of the ether. They're made from raw materials, and sometimes, or like rock wool, for instance, if it's like the bottom of the pile of mineral that they're using to spin these fibers from, it might be a little different than like the top of the pile. And we're dealing with like massive manufacturing processes. So with these little sensitive plants, these tiny little issues can make a big difference. And rock wool used to have a pH like remediation to use properly for propagation, but they've since fixed that. But I still check the pH runoff whenever I make a clone tray, because if your clones will die if you're not in the right pH. Obviously, fertigation issues and mixing of fertilizers will cause pH problems. But also the plant can get stressed out and then metabolize the nutrient solution differently, and then create an acidic or basic environment for itself in the pot. Photobiology can do that as well. Like if you cause certain stress, and essentially what you're doing is like weighing the metabolism. You're like skewing the metabolism of the plant in a certain way that starts to use slightly different inputs, and over time it actually impacts it. So monitoring this is a pro tip. It's what the best growers do all the time, monitoring EC and pH. And if you do have a major problem in the garden, check this off first. And I'll also say that whenever you have a problem in the garden, I always think of it like a detective, right? And what you're trying to do is like eliminate potential leads. Eliminate like, hey, was it the neighbor? It could have been the husband. It could have been the wife, or the whatever. And what we want to do is, this is such an easy and fast way to say, okay, it's not pH. Great. Then what is it? Because you can literally get instant feedback. Highly recommend it. And then lastly, results of pH issues. Too low acidic, like something like 4.8 to 5.2 pH. You might not actually get the plant stressed immediately, but you might get long-term micronutrient toxicity or deficiency. And this can be a tricky one, because you'll be like, what's going on? And it's constant exposure to lower pHs can actually cause that. Too high pH is often a runaway train and might like get higher and higher, and can cause some really catastrophic issues. Some people might be like, I've hop late, and it's like, okay, just measure the pH first. It's a lot cheaper than a viride assay. And you can have a pretty catastrophic, like if you water the wrong pH, like overnight, the plants are going to get stressed. So anyway, taking away talking about pH and learning more about the specifics of this, carefully check your pH when making all your nutrient solutions. Double check manually, even when you have automated equipment. This is a big one. Okay, but I have an inline pH meter and I have a special monitor. Still use the handheld one. Still calibrate that and double check it, because if that one isn't reading right, then you're going to have huge problems. Calibrate them often and maintain them properly, and then check your runoff solution. And that's my mini pH presentation for today. So thank you guys.
Just quick question about that. Okay, so we've identified the issue. How long does it take to correct something like this? Is it correctable?
Yes, I've done this with a large amount of clones. When I was running the clone nursery, how do I stop sharing? Okay, there we go. When I was running the clone nursery, we had a spike from that rock wool. Actually, we had a spike in pH, and we started to do some runoff, and we're like, oh fuck! I'm talking like 7.8, 8.5 pH. Plants look really stressed. I put them in like a 5.2 nutrient solution in a large amount. So a large amount of nutrient solution, like a tub, and I dip them. And then I let the pH come up and mixed, and then remediated the whole like submerged thing to 5.6. And then it was good. And then I drained it out a bit and I put it back on the shelf. The clones were better in 2 days. They immediately came back to life, and you can definitely remediate. You can also if you have a high pH in your high or low pH in your substrate, doing like a hard soil flush with a pH not crazy. If it's low, don't add a 6.5 or something, but put it to like 6.2, right? And water generously and then check, and then water generously and check, and try to build that pH back up. But it might be difficult to do so. The larger the pot, it might be quite difficult to do so. It can still be done though. And definitely recommend not just like letting that sit if the pH is too high. That said, guys, again, 5.5 to 6.5 is totally fine. So don't freak out if your pH runoff is 6.5. Like, that's not going to be the end of the world. If it creeps above 7, you're in trouble. If it creeps below 5.3, you might also be in trouble. That's my takeaway.
What's a good frequency to calibrate your pH meter?
The manufacturer will tell you, but I think it's every like 2 weeks or a month you should recalibrate it. That's like good practices. And honestly, like if you do it less often than that, it's so easy to forget that it's just like, just do it every month and have it on your calendar when you look at your to-do list or whatever. But yeah, let's get to questions because I want to make sure we get to plenty of questions, and we only have 25 minutes left now because I wasted so much time talking about pH.
That was dope, dude. Thank you for bringing us back. I mean, it's always great to talk about basics of cultivation, and this is a big one that people miss. Misdiagnosis, like you mentioned, hop latent. That's a big misconception when you could just adjust your pH and bounce right back.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the Christian. If you can please guide me with which channel am I looking at for the actual questions? I've seen a couple here, and I want to be in the right one.
It's right above the grow hour thing. It's like at the very top of this.
Yes, there it is. Okay.
Perfect. So I see EJSJ with when do you start counting days in flower? That's going to be when we flip to 12 hours and 12 hours. So depending on when you do the flip, typically we're counting days, like we're not counting nights, we're counting days of 12 hours. So yeah, that gets a little dicey about like the day you actually flip it. But yes, it's when we change to 12-12. So let's keep moving. Okay, Dark Soldier, the lack of description on strains is overwhelming. Most have no description at all. Why is this? Most don't have pics either. I'm not sure if Dark's talking about our gear or talking about the average gear. I hope we usually try to have description and pictures of everything.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll jump on that. We're going through a major website refresh, and this is a big part of the task list is making sure that we do have enough information with really nice menus, agronomic data, a lot of the information to help you guys understand what crosses that you want to start hunting. And that's a big one. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to interrupt you on that one.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, we really try to provide that, and obviously you're in the right place if you want anything specific. I will say that we are doing some remakes of Grape Gas gear, so there might be an opportunity to get some Grape Gas seeds of some old favorites. I'm not going to say which ones. And Sergio, do we have more? I think we still have more apples and bananas gear around, don't we? Or is that pretty much out?
Yeah, we do. We've got some stashed away in the vault, and actually we're going to be giving away some auras. Yes, yeah, we're going to be giving away some aura seeds today, which is the Azul times apples and bananas. So yeah, we're gonna pick some lucky winners throughout the questions here. So we're going to determine who's got some great questions and send me a pack. Got some, I believe, Anat, can you confirm these are 3 seed packs of the auras?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to send those out to some good questions.
Nice.
Perfect. Get those questions rocking, guys.
Okay, so check back here to learn about those drops and to find out where you can buy those, and look at our verified vendors, Dark Soldier, to find out. And you might be able to buy some of those now, like Jet Fuel or apples and bananas. Okay, so Finn's looking for a grow box. Do you mean grow tent? I'm not sure. Read everywhere, different formulas, different sizes when it comes to the ventilation. What is a good formula that can calculate my filter and ventilation size? Good question. It actually depends on what room or like the environment that you're putting the tent into. So if you're putting it into like an no air conditioned garage, then you're going to need a lot of ventilation, and you probably need like an AC unit or something like that, right? If you have it in a basement that's naturally cool, you probably don't need that much ventilation. And if you have very powerful lights, you'll need plenty. If you don't have as powerful lights, you'll need less. So Gosh, I would say that there's like a lot of forums out there that can give you really great suggestions for like full on kits, like um uh that you can use. But if you get but I do think max fans are extremely helpful, and using a max fan that's connected to a hygrometer or a temperature um uh sensor is a great way to get that going. But I'd say you just keep checking the forums, and like these going to get you to close to a good setup. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And if it is getting hot, buy a thermometer, and you're gonna have the plants in veg anyways. So I would say monitor your temperature and humidity while you're in the early stages, which are a little more flexible on those things, and you can dim the lights or turn off the lights, and or like turn down the lights. And then if it's still getting too hot, then you need bigger. Okay, what's the best way to make my own fem seeds? Wow, great question. There are sex reversal sprays available like on the internet now. But yeah, you can do research, go online, again, go on the forums and see how you can do that. But that's a heavy question because there's a lot of technique to doing it right. Yeah, so I would say you can buy sex reversal spray online, but there's a lot more research and more time than we have today to be able to give you the whole lowdown. In fact, I don't think I'm supposed to tell you how to do the whole lowdown. Okay, does it make sense to water once in 2 days with mineral hydronewts and once in 2 days with some organic compost of medium cocoa peat moss 37? I would say that, okay, I see what you're doing here. I would not add any compost after the initial planting, because compost isn't an instant. You shouldn't add. You should add compost like early, and then let it start to break down over the whole process. Not keep adding it. It's gonna get really hot. When I say hot, I mean high EC. But I would stick to the mineral hydronewts. And keep away from the compost. If you do want to use organic compost to have a better like living soil complex, make your living soil complex and then just stick to it and don't like keep adding inputs. That sounds like a kick-ass setup though. 1800 ppfd. Ooh wee. Is ppfd important for outdoor growing? Yes, but it's less often used because the sun just is there. But the sun can get to crazy ppfds, like it can exceed like 2,000. But it's wildly different depending on what time of day it is. So one thing our eyes don't necessarily adjust to is like noondays, like noon sun, or like 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. is very intense sunlight. But even though it seems super bright out in sunshine, 4 p.m. sunshine I think is like 50% less or something. So it really wildly shifts even when it feels very bright out. But it's definitely a lot more dynamic than indoor. First thing I want to know, can I use lumen? Can I mix UVA with LEDs? Is it necessary to use a carbon filter for indoor planting? Can I use lumen? I'm not sure if I know what that means. Can I mix UVA with LED? Yes, you can. I don't know what you try to accomplish with that. UV light has shown to be an interesting stress inducer to increase terpene and some interesting other like metabolic expressions. And a good amount of LEDs have that. UVA is bad for your eyes or skin really, or is like kind of mild. You shouldn't like be basking under it. UVB and UVC starts to get a little scary. UVC is like definitely bad for your skin and eyes. But yeah, you can mix UVA with LEDs, and your best new LEDs have some UV mixed in there. And then carbon filter for indoor planting. It is necessary to use a carbon filter for indoor planting if you have nosy neighbors. If you live in the middle of nowhere, then it does not matter. But carbon filter is important just to eliminate that intense smell, especially in those like mid stage of flowering. I hope I answered your question, Zaz. Okay, do you have a terpene booster nutrients to recommend? Oh man, I've tried a good amount of these. Man, I don't really. I really don't. I've had a lot of trouble with these where like they can interfere with other nutrient solution stuff, and you know what? I do have one, and it's Cutting Edge Uncle John's blend. That's the one I will stand behind because I'm a big proponent of cutting edge nutrients, and John at Cutting Edge is like a super genius. So I got mad respect for that guy. Check out Cutting Edge; they have a lot of really good products, and that's the one I can probably stand behind the most. I'm a new grower and would like some advice. Is this a good spot to top? No, it is not. And you're topping too early with that because you only have two. You're from seed and you only have 4 tops. Good yielders usually have 6 to 8, 8 to 10 mains. So right now you're now pigeonholing yourself to have 4 mains. Unless you're going to train it and top it again and like train it a little more decadent, I would let it veg longer. But you could top it there, but I would, you're only going to have 4 mains. What method do you use to get rid of insects without insecticide? Beneficial insects. That's how. Check out. You can check out. Oh gosh, blanking on some of the good companies for this. Arbico Organics is a really good one.
Coppert.
Oh, Coppert. Of
Coppert
course,
does really good
Coppert
work.
is
Yeah.
Koppert. And Arbico Organics is great. Arbico is great because they have a lot of great resources to teach you how to use the beneficial insects, but read all the information you can because, for instance, releasing them at the wrong time of day or at the wrong humidity, you'll like release them and they'll like all die. So read the instructions carefully. But beneficial insects are clutch and they can be extremely effective. That's not just kind of foofy, organic stuff. Like they are sometimes the best solution out there. So definitely get into that. If you were to work through a line, what would be some traits you'd be selecting for? Oh, that's vague, but I will say overall, like what I've made a name for myself for selecting for is overall veg strength. So just like fast growing, like vigorous plant in veg and in flowering, fast flowering, resistance to stress. Like if you have high temperature or high humidity or something like that, it's not the first one to wilt or to get weird. And then also canopy organization, like having a nice organized canopy, and that makes it more insect resistant. It makes better quality throughout the canopy. It makes it easier to leaf. It makes it easier to prune. It makes it easier to look at and appreciate. Makes everything easier. So that's some of the ones I look for when I'm working a line. Some dudes in Mendocino who grow outdoors taught me to have a spray bottle. Oh, I love this, Little Debbie. Nice. There's a lot of like homeopathic solutions that are pretty damn effective. These are purple queens. They aren't auto, but they're flowering. How can I stop them from flowering? It doesn't look like it's flowering. 2 different plants. Once, sometimes plants get if they get stressed out, and I can see you did a low top there. They're a little more prone to flowering, but it's very re-vegging plants is very difficult, and it takes a long time. So I think you just got to go with the flow and continue to flower at your 12-12 normal 12-12 and just try to work through it. Sometimes the plants will just kick out like little pistils here and there, but it will still effectively veg. Like the plant completely reverting to flower is a different phenomenon than like having a pistil here and there. So there's definitely some plants. Sergio, you could probably attest that there's some plants, and Christian, you too. We've all seen plants that even in veg or like in nursery condition, like a clone mother, has pistils there too. It just like does that because whatever. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would just keep doing what you're doing. maybe you should check to make sure that your photo period is correct. Double check your timers. Maybe do a redundant thing like stay up at night, or like ask your neighbor or something like that. Be like, were the lights on? Sometimes if your timer's off, that's like an easy kind of dumb way to mess it up. But I hope that
Sure, light leaks. Light leaks are a big one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the story behind Free Seed Strain? Red Bull Zowers, Joker's 31 Zowers. I heard got some special behind. Big thank you. So Zowers is a strain we're working right now, and we're still learning more about it. We worked with Chris Lynch on that one, but I have to get back to you guys with all the agronomic data and all the story behind that. But we have made seeds of that. We're currently doing the testing, and we'll get back to you with more information. When you bred a new strain, how many generations do you go through before it becomes something stable enough that you can sell to the consumer? I think if you mean how many generations you go through, we don't need to work multiple generations, or else you'd see these, Kingslayer by Gastro F2, F3, S1, stuff like that. So we typically don't do that, but what we do is do the testing. So stability. So I want to call out stable enough. Stable, like what is stable? I think people have used stable to describe sexually stable, like doesn't harm. They've also used it to describe like homogeneous amongst seeds. So saying, oh, all these seeds are the same. And then I've even heard it to essentially describe like when every time you grow it, it behaves the same, right? That type of thing. But I don't really know what that means unless we're specific. Stable as far as herms, we test the seed lines for herms, and we don't release hermy lines. It's very difficult to determine if something is going to herm or not. The best way to do it is to plant the seeds, grow the strain, and that's why you see us with the finished flower photos and knowing what these come out with. And we also make a lot of crosses that we never release to you guys because of too many herbs. But stable as far as consistent across the seeds, they're not consistent and they're not stable. Two different phenotypes from a lot of these are going to make wildly different plants, but that's kind of the fun of it, is that you might get something that leans towards one's parent or leans towards the other, or is a great mix, or you might get a total freak and total anomaly. So it takes all the fun out of it when it's stable, and then it just becomes a commercial product that you're spreading a seed somewhere in Canada or something like that. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, this is a lot here. Okay. Oh, this is the last question from the thing, so we're right on time. What advice would you give a new breeder looking to start out? What one thing? What do you think people? What one new breeder starting out? What one thing you would give advice to? Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna talk. I see a couple. Wow, there's a ton of questions in here.
There's a lot in there, yeah. I think start off with that first one.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to go towards some sort of like home breeder, like, and this is through years of being in the game, so to speak, of like kind of the like breeder etiquette. I'm going to talk about breeder etiquette right now. First thing, if you're reversing a strain, you better have hunted that strain. So what do I mean by that? Like, don't like buy a clone from the store and then reverse it and be like, I'm a breeder. Like, you're not. You just reverse a plant that's someone else's gear. What you're trying to do, what makes you a breeder, is trying to make something totally new that no one's ever have your own voice, right? Like, if you buy a CD off the rack and then re-record it and then I just go like one time over it like that, that's not new music. That's just me saying one time over other people's music. So you really need to create your own voice and create something that's truly yours. So the first thing you can do is buy seeds and then hunt from those seeds. And then find something unique from those seeds. At that point, if you want to reverse that, that's still essentially you reversing someone else's work. But then the seeds that come out of that, if you hunt that, now that's something that's totally your voice. And like, I would feel totally fine about, hey, you bought some of the Mellowz by Gastro and you hunted that. you then reverse one of those and made new seeds and then hunted that. At that point, that's your gear. Like you're running that, you're doing that. So that's a big piece of it. You definitely see some people playing with stuff, and I don't like discourage people playing with compound gear, but that's definitely like, you know, if you want to be a breeder, the one thing I'd suggest is like hunt your own gear, just create your own voice, make something truly unique, and then start working those lines. Okay, what do you think of people rehunt your new gear, like the Jokers, I think that addressed most of that. Hunt the gear. I want to see everyone grow it. Like, that's great. Give attribution and talk about where you got it and who you're giving and who you're crediting if you haven't made something totally unique. And I think you guys, I think we just demonstrated that as well with the Kingslayer by Gastropop. You know, it's still, since Kingslayer was a seed line made by Fig Tree, that's his gear. Like, and it needs to be attributed to him. It's only until we've worked it through like different new generations that it's something that's like our gear or something totally. And it's still proper etiquette to share the cuts and or seeds with that person if requested. So are you going to re-release Grape Gas on? Yes, we are. How do you feel about the purple trend going through the market? I think a lot of purple cultivars are good. I miss neon green days. I think too much stuff is purple. I think there's too much emphasis on purple. It's definitely driven just by the market and the buyers and kind of the economics of the game that really drives towards that. I love a lot of purple gear, but I think it's a little oversaturated. Relentless makes awesome gear. I really want to work with their Trop Cherry. And I've also hunted some of their Rosé cuts as well, and they make awesome gear. I really like Relentless. I haven't worked with Wizardries or Doja. I have seen quite a bit of archive gear, and we originally hunted some, where we actually sourced a cut of Dosilato that we really love from archive. Okay, do we have new? Okay, let's not get hung. Oh my God, there's a bunch of new questions under the thing. Okay, were these better than Glitter Bomb? That's a tough one. They're terpier than Glitter Bomb, and they look stunning. Okay, we need more love in NYC. There's more love coming to you, Snacks Packs. Just you wait. We're spending a lot of time and effort in NYC. You'll have access to our gear. Don't worry. Is PPM just as valid as EC? Yes, it correlates directly. It's a mathematical equation. It's exactly the same measurement. It just is a different way of quantifying it. So I believe it's like 500 ppm is 1 EC. It's just a different way of measuring it. Okay. When cutting clones, what's the best temperature to keep them at? Furthermore, how much water and what pH to that water? How long should I wait for look for roots? What do you suggest start feeding them? Okay. The best temperature to keep them at is between 78 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. How much water? You don't want them to be saturated. This is a key to cloning, is you really want them like lightly watered. pH to that water, and when you say water, you mean nutrient solution, should be about 5.5 to 5.7 or 5.5 to 5.8. How long should you wait for roots when you suggest feeding them? I would feed them right off the bat. So feed them a 1 to 2 EC right away, depending on how bright the lights are. If it's a 1 EC, if the lights are under 100 ppfd, 2 EC if they're around 150 to 200 ppfd, and then anything in between there, you actually can kind of do a little hack of like 100 ppfd is 1 EC, 150 ppfd is 1.5 EC, 200 ppfd 2 EC, easy. And that's how you should start feeding it, and then you should have roots after about a week. Okay, if you're flushing with pure RO water, you need to adjust the pH. Yes, and and it should be it'll swing wildly when you drop the pH adjustment drops in there. So there's a phenomenon called buffering. I'm not going to get too much into buffering, but RO water has nothing to buffer. So if you drip one thing of pH up or down, it's going to swing wildly. It also means it doesn't matter that much But it's better to still get the pH in the right range. RO versus filtered water. I wouldn't bother using RO. I don't think there's any point in using RO water for flushing. A lot of people flush or bring close to flush, with 1 EC or 0.5 EC or just like a ramp down. Okay, do I need to pH my water when growing in living soil? For some of us growers using beneficial bacteria and fungi such as those. For some of us growers using beneficial fungi such as those found in compost tea. I would pH your water when growing living soil. Yes. For some of us growers using beneficial bacteria and fungi such as compost too. I'm not sure what that question is, Breathe on me. Maybe you can clarify that. Oh, you mean beneficial bacteria, fungi? Yeah, you should. You still, even in a living soil complex, when we talked about that chart of like where the nutrients are active, yeah, the beneficial bacteria and fungi and living soil, it widens those a lot. So that's one of those that, like, if you're using a really living soil complex, you can get away with different pHs that like a hydroponics guy would be like in major trouble for. So I would still pH your water. Yes, I would. Depends on the okay, you responded to that, Sergio. Cool. On your pH subject, feeding them more frequently throughout the day will also be a way of control the pH swings. There shouldn't be swings in pH necessarily. But I wouldn't use that as a way to control pH, because feeding more frequently also gives what's called a vegetative signal. So it's going to drive the plant to make more leaves and not flower as much. So there's phases in the flowering cycle that's benefits you, but I wouldn't use that to control pH. And I would just try to stabilize pH. I wouldn't, if you have swings, then there's something wonky going. What's your opinion on ppm when growing organically and living in super soil? Is it important? I'm getting a text. So what's your opinion on ppm growing living or super soil? Is it important? Okay, so ppm, meaning like EC, like electroconductivity, it's much harder to calculate in organic substrate. So it doesn't have that. You can't do the same like runoff, like, oh, that's it, because it's actively being like metabolized by the micronutrients. So you can calculate how much compost you have in there, but oh gosh, that's a hard question. It's hard to calculate that. So what's your opinion on it? It's much harder to measure, is my opinion on it, and that it's not a very valid measurement compared to if you're using nutrient salts. Okay. And then that should be the end of the questions, and I'll address the rest later. So thank you guys so much.
Killed it, Chris. Great job, man. Thank you for all the knowledge and engagement today. This was a great chat. I love the energy here, guys. Thank you. What I do want to also call out here is, if you guys see a great question, throw a little icon on there to let us know that you liked that and it brought value, because we are going to select 4 lucky winners to get some free seeds. So please make your votes. We'll report back here in like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and just to see what the best questions were. And Chris, again, man, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on here with us and spreading the love and knowledge. And everybody to jump on here, thank you for being part of the Compound Familia. We appreciate you guys. Be on the lookout for next week's drop. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys. It's my pleasure. I really appreciate everyone coming around and listening. I'm always humbled by this experience of you guys coming out to listen and hang out. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you.